There's a bar in Louisiana that's there one night and gone the next. Let's talk about it.
Welcome to Eerie, Enigma, where the night attracts spooky clips from TikTok, where the mystery acts, chilling tales of haunting, shadows dance inside. Join us as we explore the paranormal fright. In the stillness of the night, whispers call your name.
Subscribe, like, and share. Good evening, wanderers of the Eerie. Tonight's tale begins the way all harmless nights do, with a drink, a stranger, and a bar that, allegedly, doesn't exist.
I came across this story on a forum where people share their unexplained experiences, and what really caught my attention was that more than 3 people had spoken about this exact same situation. The story was posted by a girl named Jasmine, and it was a few years ago. She was in Baton Rouge working on a work trip, and she was sharing a hotel room with one of her coworkers. And on their last night in town, they decided to go out and get some drinks, and they ended up meeting these 2 guys. Jasmine at the time had a boyfriend, but her coworker was really hitting it off with this one guy, so she really wanted to go out, so Jasmine decided to go along with them. The guys were polite, charming, and dressed strangely like turn of the century. At some point, they asked the girls if they wanted to go to this bar where only locals know and go to, and that they would drive so they wouldn't need to worry about an Uber. But Jasmine was kind of hesitant because, like I said, she had a boyfriend. They're in an unknown area. They don't know the guys, but her coworker was really hitting it off with this one guy. So Jasmine did decide to go, but she also decided to give her boyfriend her location just in case something happened and somebody knew where she was. As they drove, the city of Baton Rouge kind of just faded behind them. It got really dark, more rural, and it was about 30 minutes in when Jasmine realized that they weren't anywhere near Baton Rouge anymore. They kept taking like all these back roads, but the guy seemed completely comfortable, so she just was like, whatever. Eventually, they pulled up to this small building. It was in the middle of nowhere on the edge of the woods, and it just had dimly lit lights on the inside. There was a convenience store across the street, so again, they didn't think much of it. Inside, the guys seemed to know everybody, shaking hands, slapping each other on the back. Everybody was really friendly, but also that's when Jasmine noticed that something was off about the place. Everyone in there was dressed like they were from another time period. The women were wearing long dresses, button-up blouses, pleated skirts. The men were dressed like the 2 guys that they were with, just like very Victorian era type of clothing for the men and the women. And at first she thought it was like a theme bar, or they were having a theme that night. But the longer that she looked around, the stranger she kind of felt. The lighting was really dim inside. It was like almost candlelit. There were no TVs, no neon signs, no radios playing. There was nothing modern. Smoke filled the room. Not that that's unheard of, but we don't really see that too much today. People were openly smoking, and almost everyone in there was drinking from like a really old, thick glass, like kind of like cocktail glasses that we really don't see anymore. The girls did not fit in at all whatsoever. And everybody kept staring at them like they did not belong. At the bar, when they got up there, Jasmine didn't really want to drink, but she did want to order something, so she ordered a Coca-Cola. The bartender looked at her and was like, I have no idea what that is. Her friend ended up asking for a flavored vodka, and the bartender was like, yeah, I still have no idea what that is. He suggested Sazerac, and everybody agreed. And the 2 guys that they were with paid in cash, but Jasmine noticed when they handed over the bills did not look like modern US dollars. Again, she thought it was odd, but she's like, whatever, maybe I just didn't see it. So while sitting there and listening to the live jazz band, Jasmine texted her boyfriend telling him that it was a really cool place. She was having a good time, but she also felt kind of weird, and she didn't know exactly where she was, and she felt like she was kind of like in a kind of like uncomfortable situation. He immediately said that he had a bad feeling and he wanted her to get out of there, and he thinks that her and her coworker should leave. So her coworker was all cuddled up to the guy that she was into, and Jasmine had to physically pull her away from him. And the coworker didn't want to go, but Jasmine eventually convinced her, like, hey, like, we should probably get out of here. So when she was leaving, her coworker went to ask the guy that she was hitting it off with, like, hey, can I get your number? I would love to call you, and we can meet up again. And he just laughed and was like, I don't have a phone. And that's when everything kind of like clicked for Jasmine. She said that as they were walking towards the door, the band just stopped playing and everybody was just staring at them, the entire bar. And everyone just was like watching them leave, and they already felt like they had stayed way too long, like overstayed their welcome. And they ended up going outside, walking and waiting, and they called an Uber, and in about 30 minutes they got picked up. The next day, they were packing to go home, and they had a couple of hours before their flight, and they were going to go out and get something to eat when Jasmine's coworker realized that she didn't have her ID on her. And the last place that she remembers seeing it was when they were at that bar. So she's like, look, I need my ID. Like, we're going to have to go back there and see if they have it, because that's the last place that I remember having it. So they called an Uber. They went back out there. And as they were driving, the Uber driver was like, I don't really know about any bar out here. So the girls were telling him like, no, like you make a left here, make a right here. And they were taking him to this place. And he's like, guys, I've lived here my whole life. I don't know anything, but hey, maybe there's a new bar that I'm unaware of. So they get to the spot where the bar was, and as they pull up, there's just an empty field. There's nothing. It's the same road, same location, no building, no foundation, no sign that a bar or a building was ever there. There was no convenience store across the street, and it just completely freaked them out, and the girls had no idea what to do. And the Uber driver was like, are you guys all right? Is everything okay? The girls didn't want to sound crazy, and they just did not know what to think of it or what became of it. And they literally left that night knowing that they will never go back there. And they never found her ID. They never had an answer for it. And that is honestly why they call it the disappearing bar of Louisiana.
I've been wanting to talk about this for a while and really tell this story, because I talked about the phenomenon, but I never told my personal stories. Because like I said, I had this happen to me twice, and I was on like the tail end of it happening to like a third person. Like I'm a part of their story, but I wasn't caught in this weird, freaky warp of whatever. I have no explanation for what this even is, but the original creator called it card shuffling. So basically places around 3 a.m. in New Orleans, and some people in my comments said that this has happened in other states across the South, where it's like things are just shuffled around. Certain things disappear. Places, you could be in a bar or something, and then you find out that that place has never existed. You can't find it anywhere. And a lot of people are drawn to New Orleans for these paranormal experiences, and specifically the French Quarter. However, surprisingly, that was not my intention. I was just trying to be young and turn with my homegirl, and we ended up caught in this weird warp of space and time, and I'm not really sure how to explain this. And I tell the full story on the long form content place if you want to see that one, but I'm going to keep it short here. Mind you, neither one of us are drinking because she's driving. When we get there, we park the car, and this was the first time I'd ever seen this feature on the phone where you can set where you parked your car so you can find it again. Because I started to walk away, and she's like, hold on, like, let me set it. So I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like, she explained it to me. I'm like, that's really dope. And I was like, well, I would have noticed where we were because the building was really specific, and there was a cowboy. I'm going to show what the cowboy is. I'm from the country. We're both from the country. So I'm used to seeing this in people's yards. It's not really common to have this like cutout display in like the city and in New Orleans, but I'm familiar with it. So I'm like, oh, I would have noticed this distinct building and the cowboy. I don't know if I can insert a picture. Okay, so this is what I mean by the cowboy. This is just like a yard display, and it was propped up against this building. Now, this is just something insignificant that I thought it was just insignificant that I just mentioned. We have a good time. Eventually, my feet start hurting. I'm like, all right, let's go. I want to get in the bed. I want to eat. Like, I just want to go. So the car should not have been far. We start walking, and she's like, for some reason, like it's not even popping up. It's like I didn't even set it. So I'm like, that's really weird. But I remember the street name. I remember the distinct buildings. I remember things. So I'm like, we're going to find it. Like, don't even trip. So we start walking. Lord, we walked around for hours, looking for the street, looking for the car. The maps aren't making sense. My phone's not making sense. Her phone's not making sense. We're walking around for hours looking for this car. In this one neighborhood, it made no sense. So we've been walking for a while. We're both aggravated, both confused, like, and mind you, stone cold sober. Stone cold sober. None of this is making sense. So we see the cowboy and the building at the exact same time. I go to say something, Lord, and it's like we had been faked out so many times. I kind of didn't want to say something, and like we still weren't in the right place. Like it made no sense. But Lord, so I see the cowboys like across the street. So I'm like, I know that the car is this way on this street. So I'm like, all right, cool. And I'm about to say something, and I don't know if she gasped or what, but we look up and we see the cowboy that's still there in the same spot that it had been. He gets up, just the shadow gets up and starts walking across the street to where we are. So when she kind of like, I felt like she was going to say something, I just grabbed her hand and I'm like, it's okay. So I'm just like rubbing her hand. And if like women, we know, even if it's terrifying, somebody has to step up and be like the brave one. So I was being the brave one because I didn't want her to start like freaking out. So I'm holding her hand and I'm just like rubbing her hand. I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. Everything's all right. I'm like, just cross the street with me. So I hold her hand and I take her and she's like stiff. So he's crossing the street this way. We cross the street that way. As soon as we just kept walking, I'm just like, it's okay. Like, she starts to say something to me. I'm like, don't say anything. And I'm just like rubbing her hand. I'm like, we're good. Like everything's good. So we go like a little bit away. When we make it to the little building, I turn, bam, the car's right there. We must have approached this little area from every which direction for hours. Never came across the car, never came across the cowboy. I didn't watch it. After he like crossed, I kept my head straight. I'm just like holding her hand. I'm talking to her. I didn't watch it. I don't know. And it wasn't until I told this story, like I uploaded it yesterday on the long form content place. It wasn't until I told that story that I made the connection that possibly us crossing it might have been how we got out of that weird little loop. But it's been years and I hadn't made that connection until yesterday. So I don't really know. And again, this has happened to me again and to somebody else. And then when they kind of like came out of it, I was like at the end of that. But I don't have enough time for those stories. But let me know if you have more of an explanation for this or if you've experienced something like this and where, especially if you experienced it in New Orleans. I really want to know about it. But yeah, let me know.
If you've ever been to Fells Point, you've probably drank with a ghost. What's up? I'm Becca. I like to talk about ghosts, haunted places, and the things that people think aren't real until they experience them. This is Duda's Tavern in Fells Point. It's the oldest family-run bar in the neighborhood, and apparently so are the ghosts. Guests and staff report utensils just moving on their own, a heavy energy, an unmistakable feeling that somebody is watching you. And their ghost here, his name is Doc. Doc was a seaman, and he lived upstairs from 1947 until he died in 1980. Doc was friendly, he was well known, and he had one favorite polka song. After he died, they replaced the jukebox, and his song was no longer on it. One night, nobody put money in the jukebox, and it just started blasting Doc's favorite polka song. The entire bar went silent. When the song ended, the jukebox shut off and they searched the machine and the song wasn't even in it. The bar patrons believe that Doc came back one more time to say goodbye or to demand his song back. Next time you're in Fells Point, will you stop at Duda's and listen closely? Have you been here? Have you had an experience here? If so, drop a comment down below. I'll see you back tomorrow.
Some bars never close, and some never opened in the first place. You were handed a Bloody Mary at 2 a.m. by a bartender no one remembers. Would you drink it?
You guys, does New Orleans really have like hidden bars, like magic hidden bars? Because Tori said that they do. 3 years ago, she was on a bachelorette trip with her friends, that they were doing all the things, beads, booze, bad decisions. Late in the night, they had met up with some guys there when her and one of the guys decided to break off from the group. I don't know that I would have done that. But in her defense, she said that he was charming, good looking, and had that southern hospitality to him. He wanted to take her to a place that only locals knew about. I'm like, girl, no, like red flag. Her friends were like, girl, don't go with him. You don't even know him. She's like, it's fine. We'll be right back. He takes her down this alley that she said was just like dark, damp. There wasn't really anything down there. That's when she was like, uh-oh, where are we going? But they came to a wall that had a green door on it. He walks up to the door. There's no signs. He knocks, waits a second, and then said, this is when it got weird. I'm like, okay, I already thought it was weird, but continue. The door opened on its own. They go in. She said that it smelled damp, like wet in there. A hint of like rotting fruit. There's music, but it's coming from a guy sitting in the corner with a saxophone. But she said the guy wasn't moving, so she couldn't tell if it was like a wax figure or something. The bartender didn't look like he was from this time, but she'd been in other bars where they were just like speakeasies where they're kind of playing a part, so she didn't think much of that. So they go up to the bar and they're just kind of talking to the bartender, but she starts looking around and she said that everyone looked like they were moving at a slow rate, like they were pretending to be, you know, like, but not really. Almost kind of like a fever dream. The guy she's with orders a drink called the Second Death. She just kind of laughs because she just thinks it's like a fun name or something. But then the bartender like snaps at her. Rude one. She turns to him and he's like, if you drink, you stay. If you leave, you forget. Then the room got cold. She said not just kind of like the air kicked on, it was like freezing in there. The guy that she was with, she said his face changed. Like his eyes just turned completely black, where like the pupils just huge. She said he got very pale. She kind of freaked out and started backing towards the door when this one woman came up to her, grabbed her by the arm and said, you weren't invited here. She freaks out, leaves. The next day she made her friends go with her back down the alley to see if they could find it, and the door wasn't there. Her friends start gaslighting her. She gets upset, so she goes into one of the stores and she asked one of the guys at the store about it, and he said, oh yeah, I mean, I know about it, but it typically only shows up for people that are about to cross the line. What does that mean? What does that mean? Is that a real place? Have you guys heard of this bar? Did bars just show up like this in New Orleans? Because what?
Says that there is one rule posted on the door of the establishment that everybody thinks is a joke, but it's not a joke. And that rule is no witchcraft. And the bar where he works has been around forever. It's in a town adjacent to a major city. And I think it's been there, he said, since like 1946. It was started by the current owner's father. If you're new here, this is Spooky Scary Story Time. It's a series where I share listeners' allegedly true stories about the most unbelievable or creepiest things that's ever happened to them. And he wanted to share the story about this one customer that's always coming into the bar. This woman apparently is the reason that this no witchcraft rule is posted on the door. So he said he's worked there for 2 years and he's still working as a barback, even though he applied there as a bartender. They didn't have any openings. And the guy was like, oh, well, we can hire you, but you know, you have to start as a barback. And he's still a barback. Anyway, he's working there for a little while or something, and it's a full moon night. And anyone who's ever worked in a bar, I know I worked in a bar. Anyone who's ever worked in a bar knows that on full moon nights, people like talk about it. Like the bar staff's always like, oh, get ready for the weirdness. I don't know if this is because the full moon pulls the water in your body like it does the tides and people just act stupid, but they do. So it's a full moon night. Things are already weird. There's people crying at the bar. There's like a fight or two. But this one woman walks in the bar and she sits down and she is gorgeous. And he like stops in his tracks and he's like staring at her. And she has this beautiful face and she has red hair. She has ice blue eyes and she looks, maybe she's like mid 40s, he said. And he asked the bartender who he's working with, like, who is that? And the bartender's like, don't even try. Like, we've all tried. She's not about it. Bartender who he's working with basically tells him like she always comes in by herself, she picks up men and then she leaves with them, like this is her pickup spot. So the bartender greets her, he's like, oh, do you want the usual? And she says yes, and he pours her a glass of scotch. Bartender gives her drink. He also gives her a pen because apparently she likes to doodle on bar napkins when she's sitting there waiting for her next target. She says thank you. She's polite. She has an accent that the barback who sent the story said that he didn't really recognize, but it wasn't American. No, the bartender told him not to try. The barback is still interested, and he's trying to make like conversation with her as she's sitting there sipping on her drink, doodling, and she's really not having it. She's answering him in like one-word answers. While she's sitting there and he's working, another man who's like at the bar slides up next to her at the empty spot, and he tries to hit on her, and she just says, no, I'm waiting for someone. Basically brushes this guy off. He leaves. Not long after that, another guy walks in through the door, and the bartender goes over to the barback and he says, that's the guy she's going to hit on. And the barback's like, how do you know? And he's like, she always goes for the same type. I don't know what this type is, by the way. The barback did not give me a description of the man who walked in the bar, but he walks in, he locks eyes with this woman, and he comes and slides up next to her, and it almost looks like they know each other, but it doesn't seem like they do. The guy's just by himself. He orders a drink, and about 5 minutes after he's sitting there, the woman starts talking to him, but she's talking very low, like the barback can't really make out what she's saying. After the guy finishes his drink, she ends up buying him another beverage. And after he finishes that one, she whispers something in his ear. She pays for both of their tabs, and they leave. After they leave, the bartender looks at the barback and he's like, I told you that's the guy that she was going to go for. And he's like, well, how'd you know? And he's like, I told you she has a type. He's like, she's been coming in here as long as I've worked here, which I don't know how long that guy had worked there. But he also tells the barback that she only comes in on full moon nights. And the barback's like, that sounds unbelievable. How do you know that she only comes in on full moon nights? And he's like, well, you saw her. Like, you would recognize her. You would remember when she comes in. And like, that was just the pattern that we all noticed. The barback's like, okay, weird. You know, he's disappointed she left and he didn't get a shot, but whatever, it is what it is. He kind of forgets about her until the next time he's working on a full moon night, and he's working with a different bartender, and this woman walks in again, but she has different hair this time. Now she has jet black hair and it's cut into like a bob. But he recognizes her face and her eyes like instantly, and he's like, oh, this is that woman. She's by herself again. She sits at the bar. She orders a scotch. She asks for a pen. The bartender gives her one. She starts doodling on a bar napkin. He asks the current bartender that he's working with, this is a woman, like, do you know who that woman is? And she's like, I don't know. I've seen her in here before, but like, I don't really know anything about her. And another guy that's sitting down at the bar like pipes up and he's like, she's a witch. He kind of says it loudly enough that the woman across the bar like shoots him a look. Barback obviously wants to ask this guy who's like a regular why he thinks she's a witch, but he can't because she's sitting there and she's within earshot and she can hear him and he doesn't want to be rude. She's there for maybe an hour when a guy walks in, sits at the bar next to her, and they're talking, and she starts talking to him, and she's like whispering in his ear, buying him drinks. Barback's interested. Like, he's like, okay, is she gonna pick up this guy? So he went outside like by the back alley where the dumpsters are to take out some trash and to smoke. While he's out there, the guy that had walked in the bar and was sitting next to the woman walks out, and he's going to a truck in the parking lot. Barback sees him make a phone call in the truck, and then he goes back inside. The woman ends up leaving with this guy, okay? The next day, the barback goes to work, and he notices that that guy's truck is still in the parking lot. He assumes that he left with the woman and was going to come back and get his truck later, but the guy never comes back to get his truck, and they end up having to have it towed. He was there for like 2 or 3 days or something, and he was like, that's weird that that guy never came back. But whatever, at least the guy didn't drink and drive. He's like, it's not my business. Doesn't really think much of it. Over the 2 years that this barback is working there, he notices that this woman always comes in on the full moon, just like the first bartender who he worked with said. She's always picking up similar looking guys, always drinking the same thing. She usually only has like 1 or 2 scotches, but only one time he saw her buy shots of absinthe for her and the man that she was talking to. He said she changed her hair like 4 or 5 times over these 2 years, and strangely enough, each time she comes in, she seems to get more beautiful somehow than the last time he saw her, but he just assumes she gets like some work done. Every time he sees her, he's like more and more attracted to her. And not only that, she seems to have like a magnetic quality about her. Like, these men that she picks up are hooked on every single word she says. They're like leaned in by the time they leave with her. But he thinks it's just because she's so beautiful. He says the last time she came in, which was like early last month, the owner of the bar was there that day. And he had actually never met the current owner of the bar because he lives in Florida. And there's a different team that runs the bar on a day-to-day basis. But the owner was in town. He came in. He was like meeting all the bar staff that he had never met before. He was hanging out at the bar, having some drinks at the end of the night. And this woman walks in. And the owner's face goes like completely white. And he looks at the bartender. And he's like, have you ever seen her in here before? And the bartender's like, yeah, she comes in on full moons and she picks up men here. Like, I know she's gorgeous. Everybody's tried. Don't even try. She's not going to go for you. And the owner's like, no, like when my dad owned this place, she was coming in here when I was a kid. Like, that must be her daughter. Like, that cannot be her because she would be like in her 80s or something by now. He's just completely dumbfounded, and he's staring at her across the bar, and she notices he's staring, so she winks at him. So he goes up to her and he's like, excuse me, ma'am. Like, I don't mean to be rude. Have you ever been in here before? Doesn't introduce himself as the owner or anything like that. And she just says flat out no. The bartender and the barback look at each other because they know she's lying. Like, why would she lie? He goes, are you sure? Because I feel like I've seen you in here before. And she goes, no, you must have me mistaken for someone else. He's pressing and she keeps telling him, no, it's not me. I don't know who you're mistaking me for. She's being polite, but like very direct. And so finally he just gives up and he goes and he sits down at the bar, but he's still just staring at her. She ends up carrying out her usual activities, finds a guy, leaves with him. And after she leaves, the owner's still sitting there. And he's like slightly intoxicated at this point because he's just putting him down since he saw this woman. But he tells the barback and the bartender that when his dad owned the place, his dad had a friend that had met a woman at the bar apparently one night when his dad was not there. And his friend had left with the woman and nobody ever saw him again. That was like at a time before they had like security cameras and things like that. So they never identified this woman. They never found the friend. And his dad had always kind of felt guilty about it because he felt because like it was his establishment. It was, you know, it was somehow his fault. But the people in the bar that night had remembered that the woman that the friend left with had ice blue eyes. The bartender's like, no, you know, a lot of people have ice blue eyes. It's not the same woman. Clearly, this was like 40 or 50 years ago. The owner is apparently so shaken by this woman that he ends up calling a priest to come and bless the bar the next day. Also hangs a sign that says no witchcraft in the window, along with their other signs like no shirt, no shoes, no service. And he instructs the staff that if this woman comes in again, they are to instruct her to leave immediately. I don't know if there was something else that this guy knew that they didn't know, but he said that it was so unsettling that he has not been able to stop thinking about it. And they're all kind of just like anxiously awaiting the next time this woman comes in the bar. And honestly, I had my suspicion that this woman was like an SW before I heard the part about the guy's truck in the lot and the other guy that had gone missing like years earlier with a similar description. Yeah, the sign's on the door. It's been ever since the last time when the owner saw the woman. Let me know what you think. The bar back will be seeing the comments. Why is this woman seemingly more beautiful than the last time everybody saw her, and why does she not seem to age? If you have a story that you think nobody else would believe, feel free to send it in. We would love to hear it.
I tried to take a ghost drink order. Let me explain. My bar is haunted, really haunted. The rumors are that it used to be a brothel, and tragically, one of the establishment's working girls was pushed out of the window to her death. I am completely used to seeing figures out of the corner of my eye. So when a woman walked up to me smiling, I started to ask her what she would like to drink. I looked down for a split second to fill a glass with ice, and as I looked back up, she had completely vanished. I was close enough to see her dark hair peppered with wiry silver strands, her friendly smile, and bright eyes. I'll never forget the time.
This story is called The Uninvited. It was the day before Halloween, and Tiffany just invited her best friend Harper over so they could discuss the details of the party they were throwing the next day. They were planning this party all month, so as you can imagine, they were excited. Now, Tiffany's parents weren't going to be in town, but they knew about the party. And Tiffany's dad made sure that she understood it was 2 rules. 1, she couldn't have a party at their house. And 2, it could only be a small group of people, which Tiffany agreed to. Now, while Tiffany was talking about the changes she wanted to make to her costume, she got a notification on her phone. And in that notification was an email from the Airbnb host telling them that their reservation had been canceled. The host didn't explain why. She just said it was canceled. And that was that. Now, after Tiffany read that email, Harper started to panic. They couldn't cancel this party last minute. It was too many people expecting to come. They was hyping it up all month. That would be so embarrassing. They can't do that. But Tiffany didn't panic. She got back on Airbnb, and it didn't take her long to find another location. And on top of that, the location she found turned out to be an instant book. Now, Harper wasn't too keen on the idea. She thought it was weird that Tiffany was able to find something that fast, and something that was available the next day that they could instantly book. She thought that was weird. But Tiffany told her, Harper, you're overthinking it. This is perfect. Looking through the pictures, we don't even have to decorate. This looks like something straight out of a horror movie. I'm booking it. And that's what Tiffany did. So the next day, the girls got there about an hour before the party started. And they were expecting to meet the host. But when they got there, the host was nowhere to be found. Now, they were provided with a code to get in. But it turns out, they didn't need that code either. When they first arrived, the door was already open. But Harper figured maybe the host was in a rush and just forgot to lock up the door. So the girls went inside. When they first stepped inside, Tiffany and Harper looked around, and Tiffany started to get excited. Just like she thought, the place was perfect. Now, it was more dusty than it was in the pictures, but it was cobwebs everywhere. She tried to turn on the living room light, and it was dim. It didn't get any brighter. She even saw a skeleton in the corner, which she assumed the host had to put up as a decoration or something. So, again, in her mind, perfect. Then the girls went upstairs and started changing into their costumes to get ready. About an hour go by, and the guests started arriving, and everybody was having a good time. They was drinking and dancing and playing games. Somebody even offered to do tarot readings. But the party continued until about midnight, when a guy just so happened to be standing next to the door. And under all the loud music, he heard a faint knock. Now, when he opened the door, there was a girl standing there, very pale, very dark hair. And she didn't have on a costume, just a long black dress. But he figured maybe she was a guest of a guest, and he let her right on in. And when she first came in, she didn't really talk to anybody. She just kept to herself, and she was quiet and observant. Now, a friend of Tiffany and Harper noticed the girl and didn't want her feeling left out. So she went over there to socialize, make her feel welcome, and ask her who invited her. But the girl wasn't specific. She said, just a friend. Now, the friend thought the girl's answer was odd because why are you avoiding giving me a name? But she just accepted it, said okay, and went to enjoy the rest of the party. Now, this continued throughout the night with the other guests, bumping into her, introducing themselves, and asking her, hey, who invited you? But every single time, she gave the exact same answer. Oh, just a friend. After a while, Tiffany and Harper's friend noticed that nobody at this party actually know this girl, and she started to get a little worried. So she decided to go talk to Tiffany and Harper since it was their party. And she walks up to Tiffany, and she started telling her about the girl. But Harper started feeling nauseous, said she wasn't feeling too well, and that she was going to run upstairs, but that she'd be right back. But Tiffany and the friend, they continued to talk. And she said, yeah, she'd been hearing people say they don't know who this girl is, and she'd been meaning to go talk to the girl, but she just been so busy being a host. But she promised to go talk to her after she went to go check on Harper to make sure she was okay. And then Tiffany went right upstairs. Now, once Tiffany went upstairs, this strange girl pulled out a bag. And nobody noticed her having this bag when she first came, but people figured maybe they a little drunk and don't remember. So they didn't think too much of it. And once she pulled out this bag, she opened it, and it was full of candy. Candy that she started setting out on the table. Now, of course, once she set this candy out, it didn't take long for people to start getting a few pieces here and taking a piece of candy there. And by the time everybody had gotten them at least one piece of candy, all of a sudden, everybody dropped like flies, straight to the floor, unconscious. Now, I know, I'm sorry, but this is getting long, so I'm going to have to stop right there. But if y'all want a part 2, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, follow, and I'll see y'all next time.
This story made me never want to stop by a roadside bar again.
This is a story I heard on the Spook podcast. A woman called in and shared her creepy roadside story. So essentially it takes place in Wisconsin, in the North Woods, very isolated area. She's coming back from a bar with her friend Bob. And as they're driving down the highway, it's very dark, it's very isolated, and she needed to go to the bathroom after 45 minutes of driving. Bob wants to pull over, but she has a cane, so she couldn't do that. So she's like, just keep driving as fast as you can until we see something that's open. Finally, after a few minutes of driving, they see the roadside saloon. She said you couldn't miss it. It was the only thing that was lighting up this dark highway. It was open, and there were cars in the driveway. You could even see the neon signs of the beer signs on the window. So they pull in, they hear music coming out of there, and they walk in, and everybody there kind of turns to them and smiles. Now, this is kind of weird, she said, because in Wisconsin, especially the area that she was in, it's very isolated. Those communities, they're all locals, and if you're not a local, they're just kind of like standoffish. But she really didn't have time to think about it. She needed to go to the bathroom, so she went to the bathroom. She gets back from the bathroom, they have a drink, she starts observing the people there. There are 3 ladies by the bar, the bartender, a couple of guys over by the pool table, and a guy by a beautiful jukebox. Her friend Bob was like, oh, hey, I know about this place. There's a mural at the far end of the wall. Supposedly, it was drawn by somebody who used to work for Disney. So they walked over there to check out the mural. The mural is a Western bar from a long time ago with like the swing doors and a card table. And as they're looking at the mural, they're seeing the people like the bartender, the guys playing on the card table. There were ladies by the bar. Bob starts looking at the mural and also the bar that they're in. And he goes, oh my God, they look like the people in the mural. She's like, what? So she starts looking. She's like, yeah, the ladies by the bar look like the ladies by the bar in the mural. The guys by the card table look like the guys that are in the pool table. The bartender looks like the bartender. Meanwhile, as they're checking out the mural, the guy by the jukebox puts in a coin in the jukebox and Chubby Checker starts playing. Come on, let's twist it in like we did last. Oh, you don't know the song. That was it. So they just chalk it up as like, these are locals. So that's what the artist did. He drew the locals, which was kind of fun. They head on over and talk to the bartender. The bartender's smiling at them, very welcoming. And they said, is that you? In the mural. And he just kind of smiles and nods, just kind of like a person who didn't totally understand what they said. So she's getting a little creeped out. And then she starts looking around and notices the girls aren't drinking. The guys aren't playing pool. And the bartender's just sitting there with the same look on his face. And the guy by the jukebox, oh yeah, when the song is done, puts in another coin and it's Chubby Checker again. She said she was feeling weird, but Bob was like, it's nothing. Let's have another drink and we'll keep checking out the mural. So they grab another beer, they start walking to the mural, and she stops in her tracks. Bob's like, what's going on? She's like, look at the swing doors in the mural. What she sees beyond the swing doors in the mural are two shadowy figures that she swears she had not seen. One is a guy and one is a girl. And as she's looking at it, she looks down at the bottom of the swing doors, and it looks like the girl has a cane. And Bob's like, wait, that wasn't there. She's like, no. And as they keep looking at it, it starts to become clearer and clearer. And she notices that's them. Meanwhile, jukebox guy dropped another coin in the jukebox, and guess what it's playing? Bob freaks out and was like, let's go. So they drop their drinks and they leave, and they notice everybody is watching them leave. And as they bolt out of the bar restaurant, as the doors close, all the lights, all the music just goes dark. They take off as fast as they can. And then the next morning, they're going out for breakfast. They're telling her sisters what had happened. And they're like, let's go over there later tonight and see what happens. So they went back, and they said it was like 8 p.m. And again, roadside saloon, very bright. There were people in there. Music was playing. And as they walked in, they still see the same mural. But now there was a whole lot more people. And it wasn't the people in the mural. And she notices there was no jukebox either. And the bartender is now a lady. So she walks up to the lady and she's like, hey, who's the bartender the night before? Do you know that guy? Lady bartender said, yeah, I'm the only one usually tending the bar. Me and my dad have owned this for decades. Then she asked her, what time were you here? She said, oh, I was here late. I was here at 3 a.m. She's like, yeah, that's impossible because we close at midnight. So what was this? Was this a glitch in the Matrix? Did they go into some kind of weird parallel universe? What would have happened if they would have stayed? Tell me in the comments what your theory is.
Great Bloody Mary. Shame the bar wasn't real. Until next time, stay eerie.